All right, let's talk about calories. Calories is energy. Energy it comes from the food that we eat. To lose or gain weight, we eat more. To gain weight, we eat less to lose weight. So calories is your bread and butter, pun intended, of your body composition. That means if you're gonna, like I mentioned, lose weight, you have to eat under your calorie maintenance. And if you wanna gain weight, you have to eat over your calorie maintenance. There's a lot of people who talk about how calories does play a role, but it's the hormones that actually drive the process. Yes, but those hormones are actually getting or responding to the environment than one is providing via food. So if we overeat, we might end up with uh, gaining weight. We gain weight because our testosterone will drop, or the weight gain will cause testosterone to drop, so on and so forth. So calories is our tool that we have that we can control. Everything else is up to the health of our body. So how do we calculate maintenance? Or how do you calculate your food, your how much calories you should be eating? So to there's plenty of formulas out there, but for maintenance, you get your body weight multiplied times 15 or 14 or 15. So this should give you more or less an idea of where your calories should be. For me, my maintenance at 185, 190, I'm about 2,800 calories. That's where I am to maintain. That's a lot of food. To cut, typically what we do is same mentality. We have the body weight times 10. So this is gonna be our cutting weight. For me, this ends up being about 1800 or 1900 calories, depending how I feel. I mean, it's 100 calories, but that's where it should be. And then to bulk or to gain, well, obviously it's body weight times 16 or plus. You really don't need a lot of more food to gain. It doesn't. It's maybe 300 more calories than maintenance, so you can elicit that change and actually gain good weight. The problem comes in if to maintain you're not at that body weight times 14 or 15. That is an indication that your metabolic rate or your metabolism is underperforming where it should be. There's ways to fix it. We'll get into it. Then we get into the quality of food. So what I mean by this, it's not that it's organic, pasture raised, all this. That plays a role, but the main role that we want to focus on is focusing on whole foods versus processed foods. So whole foods. Essentially, when you look at the ingredients of a processed food, it's going to have a big list of ingredients. When you look at the ingredients of a whole food, the food is the ingredient. Apple, it's just an apple. Beef is just beef. That's what I'm meaning now with quality. Quality is more of a whole food than a processed food. That's what we want to focus on. And that is what I drive with quality, not so much that it was washed by the tears of children in Tibet or something or another. It's just whole food versus processed food. We want to focus on high quality foods first off, and then we can use processed foods out there because we're not savages per se. Things happen, events happens, parties happens, birthdays, whatnot. So we have to give ourselves that leeway that we can balance, keyword, what we eat and how we live, right? So we don't want to be eating steamed chicken breast, broccoli, and rice all the time. There's a life we have to live. So that's what I mean with quality of foods. And then we get into the protein. Uh, Protein should be 1 gram of protein per That means that me, for myself, I'm at 185, 190. I try and shoot for 190 grams of protein a day. And if I have 4 meals, roughly all 4 meals are about 40 to 50 grams of protein. How much protein is in food? Well, that's a different discussion. But typically, a 4 ounce chicken breast will have about 25, ground beef will have about 20, higher fat content, all this and that. But typically, rule of thumbish, beef, lean beef, pork, chicken, whatnot, you're looking at about 20 grams of protein minimum, depending on the leanness of the meat, per 4 ounces of that food. So for me, I usually eat about 8 to 10 ounces of beef, chicken, meat, whatnot, per meal to try and get there. Even me trying to hit that, it's difficult, and that is where I incorporate the supplements such as protein powders and whatnot. But we're not there yet. So fats and carbs. This is the interesting one. If you never track, if you never track food, you don't know where your preferences are. Bottom line is probably everybody gravitates toward a higher carb diet because that's what we're grown up and accustomed to. But if we're beginning, it's calories, maintenance, and then we hit for a protein and we let the fats and carbs do its thing. It's not super important, but it can be and it will be once we dominate calories and protein intake. So for now, I don't, coming from a super keto guy that I was a couple years ago, I have found value on carbohydrates, whole foods, right? The quality of carbs, using rice, potatoes, and whatnot to actually feed my workouts and don't feel like for example, keto, there's no carbs. So you cut them out. And then once you taste the carbs, you just want to like eat all of them, which is essentially what is it, a fast and binge mentality. So it's not creating good habits in the long run. When I'm not training or trying to achieve something, I want to have that balance. Going back to the quality, right? 80. I didn't mention this, but I should put it here. So 80-20. What it means by this is that 80% of my meals will be from whole foods, 20 will be from packaged or processed foods or whatnot during the week. So one meal out of the week, maybe two, depending on the goals and where I want to focus at. That's where I'm achieving that. 80% of the time I'll be good so I can enjoy the other 20 without being an a-hole about it. I'm not gonna go eat a pizza while going for a burger. Some issues with extreme calorie cutting or being in a deficit for that long is because we actually will move this maintenance number out from where it should be. We should be about 14 to 15 times body weight for our maintenance. That is a more of a stable metabolism that the body should be. If you chronic diet for a long time and whatnot, your calories are going to be lower before you start adding calories. You'll actually gain weight. So perfect example, somebody who has dieted for a while at 1200 calories or so a day for the longest time, and their metabolic maintenance rate should be about 1800 or 2000. That metabolism is being efficient at being able to function on a low calorie amount. That now maintenance is actually a bulking rate, which is not a good thing to be in, because now you're stressing your own self to try and eat a little bit more to fix that metabolism, which I'll get into towards the end. But we want to be in a good place of maintenance or a good metabolic health. That way we can cut and come back, instead of cutting, staying there, and now that becomes your norm. So it's always being aware of where you should be so you can actually manage and use the tools that we're given, calories, protein, fats, carbs, whatnot, to use those tools instead of those tools using us. And what happens when those tools uses us? Overweight, obesity, a slew of chronic health issues. Um, and so that drives me to how do we fix a metabolism? Uh, this person or whatnot has been at 1,200 calories. They should be at 2,000. There's an 800 calorie gap in between that. What do we do? Unfortunately, there's not an easy way to optimize this. But since they've been in a calorie deficit for a long time, they have to actually start adding calories throughout weeks and months, possibly years, depends on that damage or that slowdown of the metabolism. That way you can get to a safe range, let's say the 2,000 calories that I mentioned. What will happen in that period is that weight gain will be inevitable. It'll happen. Unfortunately, because that's the, how the machinery works. You eat more, you kind of gain a little bit more. But if we're smart about it, we can use the tools, as I mentioned, food, calories, protein, for our advantage. So how do we come up from a damage or a slow metabolism to what it should be for maintenance? We start adding more calories in the sense of protein. Protein is very satiating, so it's gonna help us, and it has a very high thermic effect of food, so it's hot. It burns hot essentially. By adding calories on a weekly basis, adding 100 calories per day for a week, then another 100, maybe staying there for a bit, and so on, increasing the calories over time until you get to a point that you feel comfortable at maintenance or between body weight of 14, 15. Remember, those are just guidelines, they're not set in stone. And once we get there, we have to live there and essentially own that metabolic rate for a while before we cut again and then come back. But now that transition of cutting and coming back shouldn't be as hard, and weight should just melt off. Okay, so that's essentially what I have for calories.